Hey, thanks for joining. Sorry it's a little windy out here, but today we're going to be going over how to save up to 60% or more without having a 2-year waiting period on your life insurance policy. This is Joe Brandow. You may have seen me in one of my articles on agents and advisors. I have both dual experience as a writing agent and an FMO, helping over 1,000 clients make sure that they have the best coverage available on the market. Now, as an independent insurance agency, we have control of everything internally, and we work for you, not the insurance companies. We represent basically every insurance company that offers life insurance. So based on your needs, we shop the market to find the best price regardless of the commission. Now, unlike these call centers that are calling you, we get paid when you only keep your policy. So we're not getting paid to get when you just say yes on the phone call. We want to make sure that we're going to find the right policy at the lowest rate on the market. Now, this makes sure that we don't get replaced by any other agent you talk to. We know what's available, and we recommend each product based on your needs and health. So now, after 10 years, here are some of the most common pain points that when my clients have experienced when getting life insurance or final expense whole life. First is the unexpected premium increases. This is certainly not with whole life. This is mainly with term insurance because a lot of clients, they had a $100,000, $50,000 policy they bought a couple of years ago. They had some level premiums for maybe 10 to 15 years. And then after that term length, it's been going up every year pretty drastically. A lot of agents just sell them the lowest price on the market and don't tell them what they actually sold them. And now you become a senior and now you have premium increases. So I wouldn't blame that on the life insurance market. That's just, some of these agents are not here for the long run. Next up is limited coverage amounts. Final expense policies, offer lower death benefits like 10 to 15,000, which is usually not sufficient enough to cover funeral costs and other life expenses. That's the main complaint. And, it's kind of funny that this is the main complaint because over the last 10 years, the average final expense policy that we sell is a $10,000 policy. And that's because, 10 years ago, the average funeral was $6,000. Now, the average funeral is $10,000. People think there's a lot more cost and coverage in that, and there really is. When you have final expenses, other than the funeral cost itself, it's a lot more than $10,000, but the funeral itself is actually $10K. So this is not just, when you have a final expense whole life policy, it's giving you or your giving your beneficiary a lump sum, not just for the final expenses, just period. So often people confuse the funeral cost and what your final expenses are, and that's why they seem to think it's a little bit higher than it is. Next is waiting periods for benefits. Some policies have waiting periods like, 2 or 3 years before the full policy pays out. And if your agent's not clear about selling it to you, you can have some really bad times. And that's just a bad thing if the agent's not telling you about what they've sold you, because if they represent over 35 different companies, they probably tried 2, 3, 4 different companies before they got that other one approved. And not going over that information is a blatant, that's just blatant ignorance. Next is aggressive sales tactics. There's some really high pressure sales companies out there, and they're mainly call centers that are calling, and they're either a lead company or a call center that's doing super aggressive tactics. That's not something we follow here. We give you a guide. Check your email. You're going to see the rates from anywhere from $5,000 to $150,000 right up front. If you're comfortable with these prices, we'll help you with the tailored quote. It's going to show you only the prices for like somebody who's 50, 55, 60. So you're not going to see like in between ages. So to help you out with a specific quote, just give us a call. But we're going to give you upfront prices almost right away. Now here, the next section here is, over the last 10 years, what my clients tried that didn't work. It's purchasing guaranteed issue policies without understanding the limitations. Some seniors, they bought policies, without medical exams, and it has no questions asked, and they just instantly got approved and seemed too good to be true, and it actually was. It's because, if there's no underwriting on a life insurance policy, it's most likely got a 2-year waiting period. And that's not that it's a bad thing per se, it's just you need to know what you're buying moving into it. And often there's better policies that you can get approved. Next is relying on TV advertisements. This is a pretty common one because, if you've got You know, these ads that are saying this is the lowest price available, it's because they're advertising you like a 50-year-old female for like the lowest preferred rates out there. And, you know, you might be 65 and you have some health conditions, so that's why you're not able to get the prices that were advertised. So it's a common, you know, something that common for, that my seniors tried that they're a little angry once they've called in on. Next is using, you know, using unlicensed agents. I hate to say it, but you know, the older clients tend to get, the bit more gullible they tend to be, and the more these call centers and bad actors that are out there can tend to make, you know, this become a big problem. And making sure you're working with an agent that's been in the industry for a couple of years, at least, you know, 5-10 years, is something I'd always recommend. And that way you tend not to have any issues with any unlicensed or, you know, getting sold, you know, a bag of tricks. Now, over the last 10 years with my clients, what they would have a dream outcome would be is affordable fixed premiums. And there's been, you know, I represent 35 different companies, and there's been some really great products that's hit the market that have some really good rates, especially for these healthy clients. So you'd be surprised if you've had your policy 5 or 6 years and you're healthy, you might be able to get $5,000 or $10,000 more for the same price that you're paying now. And these policies are locked in whole life for life. So you'd be surprised how good the rates are and how good some of these new products are. Next is immediate coverage. Dream outcome would be getting day one coverage. You know, my job as an agent is to get you either the #1 rate or the best day one coverage. And if you're in between in those health times, sometimes you'll get a better graded rate than you'll get day one coverage. So I'll say to you, would you rather just have a 1-year waiting period, or would you rather pay about $20 more to have day one coverage? And you know, you'll being that I represent 35 different companies, you're going to be able to see those choices very clearly laid out for you, and know that you have the #1 rate based on your exact health. Next here, I want to go over just some education for you guys, you know, on the type of coverage that's available on the market. You either have I want to go over the gradient that it is. So what I mean by that is you have the very lowest going all the way up to the very best based on the rate and how healthy you are to be able to get approved. So based on how healthy you are will determine which insurance companies we can use. So if you have the very worst health and the very worst rates on the market is guaranteed issue whole life. This has a 2-year waiting period, but you're going to get approved no matter what. So sometimes you don't have any other option, and guaranteed issue is where we're going to get it approved. And the next step above that would be graded. So I have a lot of policies that only have maybe a 1-year waiting period, not a full 2-year waiting period. And that would be considered a graded policy. Still the same whole life, just a little bit of a less waiting period. And then the next is immediate coverage. We have day one instant coverage. There's a lot of plans on the market that are built out there for either for the #1 rates, or even clients that had a little bit of health conditions but still have day one coverage. You'd be surprised how many different health conditions you can have and still get instant day one coverage, even like congestive heart failure. And then if you are a little bit healthy, the next step we have up from that, from instant day one coverage, would be traditional whole life. This typically has like a 10-year look back, where your immediate coverage has more like a 4-year look back. So as long as you have nothing going on in the last 10 years, we can get traditional whole life, or even an IUL, which is the last step. So it goes from guaranteed issue to graded to immediate solution to traditional, and then an IUL. So depending on basically how healthy you are, can be what products we can search to see what rates are the best for you based on your health conditions. What's pretty crazy is the actual sweet spot, I would say for my clients, is $25K. If you're in that like $65, $75 price point, you can often get what you would get with whole life, 10, 15,000, you'll get 25,000 with an IUL. The same price, almost $10,000 to $15,000 more for the same exact price. As long as you're a little bit healthier, you can get a much better rate approved. Now this last section here is my most common questions. This section here is basically over the last 10 years, some very common questions that people don't know when they're buying a policy, and you should know. And the first one is coordinating with your Social Security benefits. So like right now, it's like the middle of the month, right? So if your Social Security comes out on the 1st or the 3rd of the month, we can actually get your policy in and approved now and future draft for the 1st or the 3rd. So that way we know for a fact that we're approved here today. And then once your policy actually, you actually get your Social Security payments, then they'll take out that first month's premium on the 1st or the 3rd. So don't wait until you actually have money to get your policy approved. Get that policy approved here today, so that way we know which insurance company we're going with, what you can afford, and getting that policy issued today, and then they'll draft your premium on that 1st or the 3rd. The next is cash value. People, you're not going to get rich, but on an IUL or a whole life, you're going to grow cash value, and this is something you have access to as a policy owner. I'm not telling you this because it's something you want to access. So for example, if you had a $10,000 policy and it had $5,000 of cash value, and you took out the $5,000 of cash value and then died, your death benefit's only going to be $5,000. So it's going to be the $10,000 minus the $5,000 you took out. So these policies are not designed for you to take out of the cash value, but for God forbid, if something happens, that's your money. And know that this is an asset and it will count towards your Medicaid. So, if you're right on that edge of like $20,000 in assets on Medicaid, and now your policy has like $7,000 in cash value, that might tip you over the amount that you actually are required to have under 25K. So make sure you keep that in mind as well if you're a Medicaid client. Also, now the next one here is that you can always go up, but you can never go down. This one's kind of interesting because I'll have clients that are like at, a budget of 10 or 15,000, and they don't know if they can afford the $90 or the $60. And what I'll say to you is, if you're teetering, just know we can always go down, but just never back up. So if we go with the 90,000 at the 15K, and then in 2 years the 90,000 becomes too expensive, we can go back down to the 60,000, and then you can just have $10,000 in coverage. So, but we can never go back up because, say you develop cancer, in the last 2 years, now we can't get new insurance policy approved. You can never go back up. Now, if you're healthy, we can go back up, but you're going to pay that rates at that current age. But we can always just go back down if it becomes too expensive for you. So instead of canceling your policy, you always want to make sure you're dropping your coverage to a price that you can afford. So we can always go down, but we can never go back up. And the next one is if you have separation, we can reapply. Now, what that means is, so we're often getting like maybe a graded or a guaranteed issue policy approved, and then in say you had so if you had a heart attack 2 years ago, and then we'll get the guaranteed issue policy approved now. Then once we have a 4-year separation, which is just in 2 years from now, then we can apply for another insurance company that has immediate solution with much better rates. So we can always, once we have a separation of whatever your health condition is, then we can reapply with that insurance company at a new insurance company at a later date to see if we get some lower rates available. And if we do, you can then access the cash value that's in the existing policy and still save yourself money each month. And that leads me to the guaranteed issue being approved. The worst, elephant in the room with life insurance is that 2-year waiting period. When you have health conditions, you're going to have a 2-year waiting period. But I would tell my clients, just remember, you're going to get a 10% return on premium if you die within the first 2 years. So, there's very few places that if you were to die in the first 2 years, you're going to get there's very few places you're going to get a guaranteed 10% return on your money. So, a lot of my clients say, I'll just save my money. Well, a lot of times people don't end up saving it, but with this guaranteed issue policy, if you end up getting in that bad health conditions, you're going to be able to get a full return on your premium plus that additional 10%. So I would say start the clock and then try to get the separation from that health condition. And then God forbid, if nothing happens, since we get that full separation, we'll be able to even get better rates in the future. But definitely start your 2-year clock, and God forbid something happens in the first 2 years. That 10% is a very strong return on premium. It's well worth your money. And the last thing I want to go over here is the approvals are fast, especially with the lead product. So like what I mean by the lead product is sometimes you'll be in the middle there of like maybe an IUL or the whole life, and it's like in less than 2 minutes we can apply with this insurance company, and I can know today over the phone if we got the IUL issued or the whole life issued or not. And then if it doesn't get issued, then we can go to maybe the graded or the guaranteed issue products based on your health. So we can know right away over the phone on the best products available over the phone very easy. So that way, it's not 10, 15 years ago, it was very hard to apply with these insurance companies. Nowadays, it's instant decision, and you don't even have to do any health exams and no, paramedic exam, any of that. Just simply a few health questions over the phone. That's basically it. Now, I know I very quickly went over all the ins and outs of life insurance, but once I actually speak to you and we hear your exact conditions, your health conditions, and your needs, we're going to be able to pinpoint what the very best insurance plan is for you. When you get a chance, click the link below and schedule your call to see what the best policy is for you. And if you have your policy now, we'll see what your options are for getting additional coverage, or if you're healthy enough to get a lower rate. I know I kind of speak fast, but insurance is easy. I've been doing it over 10 years, and at the end of the day, you want an agent that's going to be here for the next 10 years, that's always going to be here for you, that's going to give you a straightforward answer whether or not what insurance is best for you. So click the link below and schedule your call to see what the best policy is. And if you have a policy now, we'll see what options are for getting either additional coverage or if you're healthy enough to get a lower rate. And after you schedule your call with me, do me a favor and complete the pre-appointment survey. It takes about less than 2 minutes, and I can help you better with your personal quote. Hey, I'll see you on the other side.